Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Game Dev Tycoon. So I did a stream on this, and I have talked at great length about it on Twitter, but I haven't actually done a video on it. So let's do that right now. Let's do a proper critique of this in terms of it actually being a video game, which is, of course, what it is. Is it a good video game? We will find out. So, it's by a company called Greenheart. I believe they consist of 2 people, and they made a game which is obviously heavily inspired by Game Dev Story, an iOS game. Came out a good few years ago right now. There's also another game in this particular niche called GamesBiz, I think. It's a significantly more complex simulation, however. This is heavily inspired by Game Dev Tycoon. There's a lot of mechanics that are obviously very similar in there, although there is enough of a unique spin to say that while it is clone-y, it is not a straight-up rip-off. Now, we go into this, and I will show you exactly what's going on here. So, I'm not going to show you the options menu, because there isn't one. Really, there just isn't. Like, there's music on and off, and windowed mode and full screen, and that's it. All the game's got. You can change the length of the game, if you so desire. We'll go with recommended for the time being, and we'll hop in and see exactly what's going on with it. Gonna save over a couple of slots. Alright, so welcome to Game Dev Tycoon. You start in your garage, and you have to develop video games and try and make your fortune. Start with a few basic genres available here. Sports games, action, adventure, RPG, simulation, strategy. Funnily enough, there aren't actually all that many genres, because I guess genres don't really get invented in the same way. But we're going to go with a sports action game. Obviously, combining these in a way that makes sense is a good idea. You could have a sports RPG, but unless it's one of those times when people are after weird genres, which is one of the events that actually happens in the game, it's generally not really worth doing. This is a good combination. You know, as you might imagine, military simulators usually good as well. And then you have 2 platforms. These are based in history. That is the Commodore 64, that's the PC. They don't use any trademark names, so you're going to see some really weird parody names. Graphic style, text-based or 2D graphics version 1. You can change this later on, and then you start your development. And he's going to type away, and it's going to add balls to these 2 different things, design and technology. Balancing this up is generally a good idea, and the way that you do this is by going through 3 different stages of development, and then fixing bugs, and then releasing the title. So these involve manipulating sliders. So I want to focus on the gameplay, story, quests. This really shouldn't matter all that much. We can probably knock that down to minimum. And we'll put a bit into the engine as well. There we go. Why? Because you'd think that would make sense, right? A sports action game isn't really about the story of the quest. You don't need to invest a lot of time in that. So gameplay is probably the most important, with engine following up as well. Can't really have a good sports game without a good engine behind it. So we'll see how that one works out. It's going to introduce a few bugs. These kind of need to be fixed before you release your game, and if you don't fix them, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So far, design is good, but technology isn't, so that's not so good. Dialogues, don't think we need that. AI, I think needs to be pretty important. You've got to have a good sports game there. Level design doesn't seem like it would be all that important at all, but we'll give it a shot. Who knows what kind of sports action game this actually is, right? So, more bugs, more design, more technology. And now, world design, graphics, and sound. So, I would think that world design is less important. You want graphics and sound as your priority for something like that. Alright, now, once it's finished the game, you can sit around for a little bit longer and try and develop it a little bit more. You've, of course, got to fix the bugs first. You can release it, but yeah, it can be problematic if you do. The thing is that there are monthly costs to consider, so you can't just sit there for all time trying to tweak your game, and in fact, it can introduce more bugs sometimes. But I'm going to wait this out a little bit longer until I have my last month's worth of cash before I go into my overdraft, and then I'm going to release. Alright, looks like we're going to get nothing else out of this, so let's release the game. Biscuit balls. Delicious, salty, crunchy biscuit balls. There we go. Now, this levels you up in a wide variety of different ways, gives you experience in all manner of different areas. So we're now going to release the game, and we're going to see what happens. In the meantime, though, I now have earned some research points, so now might be time to research a couple of new topics. Racing. Yeah, let's research racing. Sounds good. You'll have a wide variety of research topics as you go through the game, and let's see the reviews. All right, what do we got? An 8. There we go, not too bad. Let's see if we continue to make that a 7. Not too shabby. This is a pretty reasonable start for your starter game. This is all, as far as I can tell, determined by some weird complex algorithms that you don't fully understand. The game never really explains any of it to you. The reviews are actually the weakest part of the game, I feel, because you don't get enough feedback to teach you how to play the game well. If you want to make a game based on the information you're given, then you're not going to have a very good time. You're not going to get very far with it, unfortunately, because they just don't tell you anything. They really, really don't. These reviews are lacking in detail so much that you can't figure out what was wrong with it. Every now and again, you get a little tidbit like, should I focus more on design? Or, it's really great that they focus so much on the engine. And that might give you some information, but it gives you so little feedback that it's really hard to determine it. Now, if you actually want to play the game optimally, you can go to a wiki and look at all of the different algorithms, which completely defeats the point of the exercise. Shouldn't have to go to a wiki, and it's not enjoyable anyway. Alright, let's make our second game. So, racing game. Racing action or racing simulation. We'll make a racing simulation. Excellent. Biscuit racing. Of course, naturally. 2D graphics version 1, and we can start off again. So, you can see the sales are going on and on. Eventually, your game will be taken off sale. So, I think, like, you probably want to focus on the engine a lot. The driving engine is very, very important in the simulation, so I'm going to put as much time into that as I can. A little bit, of course, into the gameplay as well. That's pretty important. As you can see, because I'm focusing on the engine, I'm getting a decent amount of technology going here. Alright. I think we kind of leave this the same, really, because I don't think dialogue's that important in a racing simulation, so you want gameplay, you want good track design. At least that's how I'd design one if I was making one, so... Now, in this case, I think maybe your world design needs to be pretty good. You can probably knock your sound and your graphics down a little bit. I don't know, actually. Should world design be that good? Because if it was a racing game, world design, you would think, would refer to how good the tracks are. But this is the problem. You don't know. Right? The game doesn't tell you what this means. Does world design mean an intriguing and immersive world, or does it mean something more basic, like track design, you know? What does that mean? The game doesn't say. So, it's kind of trial and error more so than anything else. You think there's a simulation, you want good graphics and good sound, right? So, okay, let's knock this down, let's see what happens. If I do the common sense thing, will the game reward me for that? That's the question. Alright, let's fix up all the bugs. Biscuit Balls is about to be off sale by the looks of it. It's currently not selling enough for me to break even, so that's pretty bad. Introduced another bug. Yep, good simulation there. Another bug. 17,000 units. Alright. Now, you get pieces of industry news every now and again. These are always the same every single time, so things will always play out the same way. And they are, of course, based on history. So, the Commodore 64 did not, in fact, replace PCs, as we are well aware, so... It's kind of a nice little reference, a nice little nod, maybe. But that's about it. It does affect the game, though, in some way. If you... Although, does it? Really? That's the thing. I could say, oh, it affects the game because developing too much of the G64 might be bad. But no, actually, milking the G64 while it lasts is a really good idea, while it has that market share. But once it gets put out to pasture, it doesn't really matter so much. Alright, let's release the game and see how that one works out. Reviews are in. Let's see if the common sense thing actually helped. Nope, 5. Alright. Common sense says that there's a 7 there as well, so reviewers are a bit divided. Common sense said that I think the sliders that I used were probably right, but who knows? It's all guesswork, because you don't get enough feedback from the game. Alright, let's research a new topic, shall we? Dungeon. Dungeon RPG sounds like a good combo. In the meantime, of course, Biscuit Racing is going to sell. It's actually going to sell less copies than previously. It's going to keep me afloat, though, so that's not too bad, and we can work on our next game. Alright, now this will unlock contract work. This means that if you don't want to develop a game or you just need some quick cash, you can do contract work. This is all timed, so I'll show you exactly what we're looking at here. You can see what you need. You need both design and technology over the course of a number of weeks. You are penalized if you don't do it properly. I can do this in 5 weeks, I think, so I'm going to accept this contract here. Doesn't pay all that well until... there are times when doing contract work can be lucrative, especially when you actually get your own development studio and you hire staff to help you out with it, but doing it on your own, often not. Okay, so, looks like there's going to be the release of the NES coming fairly soon. And my guy's getting stuck for whatever reason, which means I am actually going to fail this, which is really irritating, so... It just seems like it seems like it's at random whether or not you actually fail this or not. he scratched his head twice, which caused huge amounts of delay. That means he's not developing anything. Why did he do it? No idea. Not a clue. Yeah, so that's pretty bad. This is actually one of the reasons I don't do contract work all that well, because the game's really inconsistent. You'd think that at some point, you'd know exactly what your guy's capable of and what he's not, especially considering he starts with... I can't show you it because I don't think it... Yeah, it won't let me show you till later on in the game. Every developer has stats, yeah? Including their speed, their ability to research, as well as their technology and design stats. Now, your guy starts with like a solid 300 in pretty much everything, which you'd think would be enough to do that kind of contract work, but apparently not. So, I bet if I did the same contract again, it would have had different results. So again, it's random BS, as far as I can tell. Okay. Now, I will be able to research my own custom engine soon. I'm not going to develop it yet because I know that the NES is going to come out. So I wouldn't develop an engine that doesn't have joypad support, for instance. So I'm going to wait. Okay, in the meantime, let's develop a new game. I've got Dungeon. Let's make a Dungeon RPG. Dungeon crawling RPG, that's pretty standard. 57.8% market share. Why develop for PC right now? It's slightly cheaper, but it doesn't really make a lot of difference at this stage. Later on, of course, it actually maintains that $5,000 development fee, which is way, way cheaper than any of the other systems. All right. The Bowels of Biscuit, which you can just fit in there. What annoys me about this, actually, is they don't give you enough characters to play with in the naming. You know, I think half of the fun of this game is making stupidly named stuff and creating stories surrounding it. So I can't even fit the Bowels of Biscuit in here. I can only fit the Bowls of Biscuit, which I guess is fine too. One, two, this delays for some reason. You have to like press it twice. That's so weird. Yeah, you don't get a lot of characters, which means that I can't add the word reckoning to the end of everything, which means that in itself it's a terrible simulation of game development there. The Bowls of Biscuit. There we go. Okay, 2D graphics, V1. Let's give it a shot, shall we? So, Biscuit Racing is going to sell about 15 million units. That's not so good. Now, you think you got to focus on quests, less in the engine. There we go. Focus on those quests. It's a dungeon RPG. Got to have good quests, good storylines. Okay, so I'm making some money here quite nicely. You'd think that, oh, it's really easy to make money in this game. You don't even have to make good games. It's easy to make money at the start, and then the game just dicks you over. Okay, dialogues, level design, artificial intelligence. Level design needs to be pretty high. Dialogues need to be pretty high. I think AI can go down a bit, though, so let's give that a shot. It seems like a good idea. If you're going to make an RPG about dungeon crawling, surely you need good dungeons, right? That would make sense. That's logical. World design, I think, needs to be a lot higher. I think we can knock sound down just a little bit, so let's knock graphics down a little bit as well. Give a lot of attention to that world design. Make sure that it's a really intriguing thing. Alright, so the NES will be out very, very soon, so I need to be prepared for that by making an engine that actually supports it, but I can't do that until I actually release the system. It doesn't support getting game development kits in this game, so yeah, you have to just deal with it. Alright. Go on, fix that bug, please, and we will release. Technology wasn't so good, but design, I think, is probably that seems like it's the best design game we've made yet. And that's a good combo as well, so I get an experience gain and I level up in all of these things, which hopefully means I should be able to make better games. Admittedly, this stuff is all really weird and ambiguous, because honestly, you can make 10 out of 10 games from the start. It's actually possible to do that. Whereas in something like Game Dev Story, I don't believe it is. You gotta sufficiently level your guys up for that. Not in this case. Okay. Let's see how this one does. I still don't have enough research points, so I'm going to start developing a new game almost immediately. We're going to make a military simulator. And we're going to make that for the G64 once again. Biscuit on Duty will be the name of it. With 2D graphics, and then we'll start developing that, hopefully, while this one does well. Let's see the reviews. What do we get? What do we get? 5s. Why? Who knows? Like, this is the only kind of feedback that you usually get. Yeah, what is this? I mean, this is useless. This information is absolutely worthless, right? So you can't actually make any kind of distinction whatsoever based on the info the game gives you. It's all trial and error. And that, here's the irony of it, that's bad game design. It is. The game has got to give enough information to the player so that they can learn from their mistakes and become better at it. It should not all be trial and error. And yet, a lot of the time it is. Like, it seems like what I'm doing would make sense, and yet it isn't. Okay, we're going to focus a lot on the engine, because simulator, surely you want a good engine for that. Less on the story and quest. Doesn't matter. It's a mill sim. Shouldn't be too much of a big deal. All right, we've got over 50 research points now. That's good. That means we can make our engine quite soon. Okay, dialogue's not so important. I'm thinking a lot of artificial intelligence, because again, it's a simulator. Of course you want good AI, right? That would make sense. Bad AI in a simulator is going to really take you out of that simulation, especially since there's no multiplayer invented yet, so it's entirely reliant on that. Graphics and sound, I think world design could be weaker. You need, it's a sim. You need really, really good sound. Graphics not so important, but great sound to really immerse you in the experience. Seems like a good idea. Alright, cool. This is looking a lot better. Let's fix the bugs. 12 and 13 technology, that's really well balanced. 13, 14 technology, that's really, really good. Gonna get another bug. Maybe, can we get another technology point? Yes, we can. Let's fix the bug, and we can release it. Alright, cool. So that platform has now been released. That's a new record in terms of that. Good combo, great combo, levels up in pretty much everything. Good, let's release the game. And in the meantime, we're going to research our custom engine now, and we're going to develop that custom engine with the joypad in mind. Very important to be able to do that, because otherwise we won't really be able to develop well. Now, is this one a good one? It's an 8. It's not too bad. Not too bad. Now, I've got to admit, it's pretty compelling to see the reviews come in every time you make a game. It's pretty tense, but again, because this doesn't give you a lot of good information, other than stuff that you already knew. Military and simulation is a great combo. I know that because it told me when I finished developing the game. That's useless information. It's completely redundant. Okay. So let's research the custom engine, and now we should be selling a reasonable amount. Yeah, we're going to actually sell more in the first month than we ever have, so that's great. 10,000 copies in the first month. Fantastic. So making a good amount of money, that means I should be able to develop my engine. Sweet, we've researched custom engine. Wonderful. Research now available. Gamepad and steering wheel. Very, very important that we research both of those, I think, actually. Because we want to make racing games, then steering wheel support is always nice. We'll research the gamepad first, and then the steering wheel second, and then we'll make the engine. Unfortunately, you can't add things onto an engine later. You've got to redevelop the engine with all those features in mind. So whatever features you have available to research, you should do so before actually building your engine. I've got plenty of money now, so this shouldn't be a problem. 8K monthly cost since I'm sitting in my garage on my own, so not really a big deal. Being forever alone is a pretty cheap hobby. Alright, create custom engine. Okay, so we can now make a gameplay engine which supports some more advanced stuff like mono sound, linear story, save games, as well as gamepad and steering wheel support. It's pretty good. That's a better engine than what I was working on originally. It's Biscuit Engine version 1.0. It's going to cost me $140,000 to make this. Also generates a lot of research points in the process, which is quite nice. Okay, so that generated a good amount of money. So I think I'm pretty healthily afloat for a little while anyway. My monthly costs are only $8,000 a month, so I spent a good amount of money developing this engine. Not really sure. I guess the cost is to simulate buying proprietary tech for it, but that's kind of weird if you're developing your own custom engine. That said, there are plenty of people that end up making an engine and then still use something like Havoc Physics with it, or PhysX, so, this whole middleware thing, not really well simulated in this game. Admittedly, there's only so far you can really go with the simulation without making it ludicrously complicated, so... Alright, sweet. We have an engine. The Biscuit Engine version 1 is ready. It is the most advanced engine to date. Let's develop a new game on it. Let's develop a new game for this right here that has taken excellent market share. It's going to cost $80,000 to get the license for it, but that's cool. We could make a racing game. Should we make a racing action? Did I already make a racing action? No, I made a racing simulation. It's completely different. Racing action is good too. So we're going to make a racing game. It's going to cost quite a lot to develop. I'm going to pick Biscuit Engine version 1. We're going to make it with the new 2D graphics technology. This is going to cost a lot of money here, so this is probably going to put me into my overdraft, but I have a feeling about this one. I really, really do. I think this is going to be our magnum opus. Steering wheel and gamepad support, save game support, linear story. I don't think is actually relevant at all to this. Bank account is now in the red, so if I go below 50k, then I am in serious trouble. They will give me a one-time loan with a ridiculous repayment, so it's never good to get there. AI, dialogue's down at minimum. This seems reasonable. You'd think so. For a racing action game, that seems okay. Okay, so I should be alright. And I don't think it's going to cost me any more. Yep, massive success. Always good. So that means we're going to be selling on a popular system. We'll put mono sound in there as well. It's really, really hard to say if I should be allocating to world design here, because I don't know what it means. I don't know, what does world design mean? Who the hell knows? In the context of a racing game, that's very, very ambiguous. Alright. To some degree, if you want to be really successful in this game and not just do the whole trial and error thing, it's one of those wiki games where you've just got to look this stuff up. And that, again, defeats the point of the game. You know? It's the biggest quandary, I think, that It's not a quandary. What are you talking about? That's incredibly stupid. What? There we go. Let's release the game. Joystick support now available. Cool. It's not a quandary. It's just one of the biggest things that this game does wrong. Oh, and I called it Game 5. Alright. Oh, we got 8. Not bad. Let's see if we can get another 8. Now we're getting a 7. Alright, well, that's okay. A 6? Game Hero, you suck. You're not getting any more review copies now. We should embargo those guys to launch. Alright, let's see how well this game sells. Not well at all. Maybe just barely enough to climb me out of the red. That was pretty bad. Okay. Let's research a new genre. Pirate or sci-fi. Fantasy is always good too. Joystick? Hard to even say how useful that is, really. Does that actually enhance the game in any respect on, say, an NES? I don't know. Doesn't tell you. The funny thing is, I guess, that all of this stuff that you research, it just expects you to know things. What does having a joystick add to the game? I don't know. I have no idea. I assume it's good for flight sims. But again, as we've seen, that doesn't really mean anything. The game doesn't necessarily follow that logic. Alright, let's make a new title, shall we? We're gonna make we could make a fantasy RPG. It's usually pretty good. We've made an RPG before, let's try and make another one. Biscuit Engine version 1. The Elder Biscuits, of course, naturally. What else could it possibly be? 2D Graphics version 2, and let's start again. So we have just enough money to develop this without too much of a problem, without the bank getting on our arse. Story, we don't need... Does having steering wheel support in a fantasy RPG at any point? I've got to assume no, but again, the game just never tells you that. So, who knows? Who knows, right? Alright, focus on the story and quest, less focus on the engine. Okay. This is good. So now we can actually develop for target audiences once we do the research, so we can start to make mature games and things like that, which is always good. Or we can develop games for kids. Specific platforms are going to be popular with specific demographics. Dialogues, less the AI, there we go. Fantasy RPG, it's going to be all about that story, you would think. But who knows. Got a lot of points in design so far, so I'm pretty confident this is going to do fairly well. A lot in world design, less in sound, a little bit less in graphics. There we go. Want to design a really compelling world. That's the point of it. Now, most of the gameplay that you're seeing here, of course, is going to be everything that you can expect until you get to stage 2 of the game where you actually have an office. And then you're doing stuff like training staff, and you're also managing the idea of going through publishers and so on and so forth. So the game does add layers of complexity on later on. This is not saying that this stuff isn't compelling, because it is, but I think it's only compelling because of how interested I am in the idea of game development. And this is the thing, like, I am the target demographic of this game, evidently. And it's my interesting game development and thinking, oh, you know, wouldn't it be cool if I could run my own game studio that keeps me interested in it? But the thing is that if you get too interested in something like that, you can very easily just look past the fact that the game just might not be very good. And the conclusion that I've come to, and I must have played 10, maybe 15 hours so far of Game Dev Tycoon. I dedicated an entire day to it where I just obsessively played the game. But the conclusion that I've actually come to is actually Game Dev Tycoon is really not a good game in and of itself. It doesn't have a lot of the elements that make games good. The weakest part of the game is, of course, the feedback that it gives you. You can just, like, randomly fail, and it's hard to know why without going outside of the game and looking in the wiki. It's like, well, why aren't my games selling? No idea. Can you do market research to help? Nope. No. There is, as far as I'm aware, no way to do that in the game. Could you do stuff like, you know, the way that the games industry actually does things, for instance, like get a reviewer to make a mock review, tell me a little bit, get consultants in to tell you what's going on. Far as I know, you can't do that. I've played pretty far into the game. You know, I played up to the PlayStation 3 era, like current gen consoles, and I never saw anything like that. So the entire way through, you're going in blind, trying to learn based on trial and error, which is a very, very poor way to design your game. Alright, let's continue on, shall we? I can now make for specific audiences, so we can make a mature game. This is a good way to actually get people interested. We can make a mature space adventure. Why not? That sounds reasonable. Now, no point making a mature game for this system. It's a bad idea. Very bad idea. According to this, most mature gamers played on computers and not on that. So there we go. Cool. We'll do that. It's going to be the Master System coming out fairly shortly. We will, of course, call us Sexy? What? Try again. Why is that word not working for me today? Sexy Space Biscuits. Ooh, yeah. Just the spiritual sequel to the custard creaming. Cool. So, that's good. That's going to push my sales of the Elder Biscuits up a little bit here. Space Adventure. You're going to want to bid on quests, I think. Thing is, like, adventure is a very strange genre, I suppose, because it's not specific. What does it mean? Are we talking point and clicks here? Who knows? Alright, now every now and again you get sort of random events, or there's the ones predetermined that every time you make a mature... Well, the first time you make a mature game, you'll get interviewed, and that'll actually develop hype for your game. So, developing hype and marketing your game is something that really comes into effect later on. We might be able to show you that quite soon. I should be out of the garage quite soon. I think it'll offer me an office space. Alright. Let's make this a little bit even. It's hard to say exactly what I should be spending time on here, because again, space adventure is a very odd term. Does it mean a space point and click? Are we talking about Space Quest here? Are we talking about X Beyond the Frontier? Is it Elite that I'm developing? Who the hell knows, right? Who the hell knows? Focus on world design here, I think. See, hype is being developed, and hopefully this will sell well, and this will sell well enough and get reviewed well enough for me to actually move into the office, and then I can show you the staff management stuff, and then I can bring it to a conclusion. Good sale on the Elder Biscuits, not too bad. Leading us into a DLC-filled future. New combo. Apparently it was not a great combo, but it's a new topic, so that's going to give me that bonus there. New research available. Better AI. Now, every one of these research elements, which have stuff like joystick or better AI, those are all included in engines, so you've got to actually develop an engine with them in. Sexy Space Biscuits gets a 6. Yeah, that's... and a 6, yeah. Don't know why, because the game doesn't tell you. So, I guess maybe it'll sell well because of hype, but the problem is that if it was a bad game and it sells well because of hype, you end up losing fans, which is not so good. The Master System has now been developed. I haven't had a big success yet. I need to get a smash hit, otherwise I'm not going to be able to move out of this bloody garage. Stay with my mother forever. Alright. Evolution is a really weird topic, isn't it? It's like Spore, right? Like, really? Let's go for Pirate. There we go. Everyone loves Pirate. A pirate adventure for the NES. That would probably sell pretty well, I think. Pirate adventure aimed at kids. Bear in mind, of course, the NES is very much a system that, in this game, was actually marketed towards children. They're not wrong, you know, it's historically very correct. The reason why those kind of games are so popular with adults now is because we played them as kids. Okay, cool. Let's develop a new game. It's going to be aimed at young people. It's going to be a pirate adventure. It's going to be called Seabiscuit. I'm terrible, I'm sorry. Now, the market share starts to split off here, of course, because these two guys are really competing. PC market share is falling, as is the G64. Don't worry, the resurgence occurs later on. Developer for the NES, Biscuit Engine version 1. I wonder if someone will actually mod this game to take the parody names out, because it really is kind of annoying. I understand, of course, that there are trademark issues with that, and that there's no licensing, but still, really. Alright, gamepad. Now, I just made an adventure game, so it wasn't rated that well, so I've got to change things around. Let's maybe focus on the story. A little bit less focus on the engine. Let's adjust it. But again, this is really just... It's like range finding in battleships. You're just moving sliders around until you think you get it right. And it's really all guesswork more so than anything else. Okay. Let's focus on that story. AI. Kids don't care about AI. There we go. Good focus on the dialogue. It's a pirate adventure. Sexy Space Biscuits is now off the market and didn't really sell all that well. Design is good, but technology maybe not so much. Even more focus on world design. Make a compelling world for the kids to explore. which seems to have worked out fairly well. That's a good amount of design points there. Let's fix some bugs. Let's see if maybe we can get a little bit extra polish on it. Casual games, now available to research. Surprisingly, you tend to have disastrous consequences if you go for early casual games in this game. Okay, let's release it and see what happens, shall we? Will this be our smash hit? It's a great combo, that's always good. And we get a bunch of level ups in all of these things. Level editor and open world research now available for the engine. Always nice. We should also get joystick support. Come on! Will you take me through to the office? If not, I'm just going to load the bigger game that I had, and then I can show you it then. Alright, G64, as you can see, is going to be off the market quite soon. Come on, Seabiscuit! Bollocks! 7. Alright, I'm going to load up my other game. This is actually a studio kind of on the edge of failing, but it will show you some of the more advanced features. Because I'm clearly not getting out of the garage this time. There's times when I can make just one game and immediately get out of the garage because it sells a bazillion copies because for some reason it resonates. But then there are other times when it just doesn't work out. Okay, let's load up my more advanced game. So, what do we got? This one right here, 14,000 fans, $1.3 million. Now, it costs a fortune to run a studio like this. An absolute fortune. So I'm going to stop time for a second so I don't lose a bunch of money. So I have 2 employees, I also have myself. Now, what can I do? I have the ability to develop sequels to existing titles. I can find contract work, but the contract work is a lot bigger this time. So there's a lot more stuff, but there's a lot more money involved in it, and everyone can contribute. So doing contract work becomes less risky later down the line, but it doesn't pay that well. And even if these guys require absurd amounts of pay, so even if I get this contract, it takes 7 weeks, almost 2 months, this won't pay for itself. That's the weird thing about contract work. Because running a studio with even just 2 mildly competent employees costs such a huge amount of money, contract work at this stage of the game is actually a waste of time for the most part. But developing video games is also pretty expensive too. So, what can we do? You can also do training. Now, this training will allow you to boost your stats up. TotalBiscuit is level 5 here, as you can see. You can train for a boost, which costs a huge amount of money, but this is what you can use to really power your team up to make that smash hit game. And also then, design, technology, speed, and research are stats available here as well. If I go to this guy, we can check his training. He's pretty average, but he doesn't cost a lot of money to keep on staff. And then if we look at her, she's pretty much a specialist in technology, but she's still obviously fairly low level because I don't want to hire these really high level developers because I can't afford them. I really can't afford them. Biscuit Space Go has currently sold 357,000 units, which is always good, but I think that was through a publishing deal. Now, what you can actually do is develop through a publisher. Now, publishers want specific things, so a casual surgery game, Codemeisters would love that, gives you a minimum review score. If you don't meet that, you actually get penalized in a pretty heavy way. I don't have the license to develop for that. Lowwood Productions wants a sports game, but they want 8 minimum score, and then you get your royalties. This is a pretty accurate simulation. The royalties on these things suck, but this is a really good way of building up your fan base. I don't think they pay you enough up front, honestly. Like, they say, oh, here's some money. Like, this doesn't even pay for the studio for 1 month. I mean, it's actually fairly ridiculous. I'm not entirely sure that the game is properly balanced in that respect, but I may just be playing it wrong, so, yeah, it's hard to actually say. Alright. What should I do? Well, can I get an 8? Hell, you know, if I get an 8, this would be really, really good. Or I could make a fantasy casual game. Minimum score 5. This seems easy enough. Let's go for that. Let's make a casual fantasy game. It's on PC. Making a casual fantasy mature game might not work out so badly. Now, this is a medium-sized project, which means that it's going to be a little bit more difficult to develop. Fantasyville. Fantastyville, what? Yeah, just whatever. Pick my engine. As you can see, I've got various iterations of it. This is my latest engine. 3D graphics version 1, 2D graphics version 2. We'll go with 2D graphics version 2. Alright, and these guys are all going to work on this. So everybody contributes, so that's always good. But you've got to assign people to various things. You've got to also manage their workload effectively to make sure they're not overworked. Now, from what I can... As far as I can tell, assigning someone who's really bad at design to something which is very design-intensive will probably result in a poorer game. But again, the game never explains any of that, as far as I know. So, it's not really all that helpful. We don't need steering wheel or joystick support, but we do certainly need mouse support. Make it multiplayer, why not? Means we're going to have to dedicate a little bit more time to the engine, as you can see. I don't think we actually have the requisite skill to make that work, because we're... As you can see here, because we're putting so much effort into it. There we go. I can make it work, but it's going to take a lot of dedication. Is it worth it? Hard to say. Might not be. I'd rather focus more on the gameplay than have multiplayer. As you can see, I can focus way less on the engine now because I haven't got multiplayer in there. So the more of these features you add, the more intensive it is. Workload-wise, I'm going to be overworking myself by the looks of it, but I'll try and assign stuff in development stage 2 a little bit better. Biscuit Space Go is still selling. Popular genre at the moment is adventure, so you can develop to try and exploit those popular trends wherever possible. A little bit of hype going here. You can also market, so I'm going to spend some money on marketing here. Magazines and demos sounds like a good one. That's going to build the hype up a little bit for this title. Dialogue's artificial intelligence. Well, someone that's really good at tech should really be working on the AI there, I think. Actually, I should work on the AI because it's less work for me, I think. Oh, I'm working on both now. We can't have that. Can't have that. I'm going to put Ethel Warren on dialogues and Parker Paul can work on that. There we go. That's a little bit better balanced now. Only needs a 5 for this, but I don't know. My design and technology amount is not getting up that high, so maybe that won't happen here. This could be a pretty weak source. There's also these fatigue bars for your staff. You never get tired because you are some kind of game development robot. But yeah, you will have to send them on vacation every now and again. And my god, do they cost you a lot of money. They really, really do. Monthly costs, I think, for my company are around $80,000 just to keep people employed and the office open. So you got to be very, very careful with your money. It can very, very, very quickly disappear. Alright, need to bug fix, polish up this game. I don't think this one's going to be very good. Looking at the design and technology ratings, it's pretty balanced, but I don't know about that. Alright. Stop putting bugs in my game. Thank you. There we go. This is pretty even. Yeah, this is a pretty well-balanced title. We'll see if it's good enough. Don't think it's a very good combo. You see, got all sorts of levels up there and things like that. And then they just randomly ask for money. I guess it's got something to do with them increasing in actual skill, but this guy costs $47,000 a month just to keep on staff. It's actually ridiculous. I'm going to send her on vacation right now. Should I go to the games convention? I could. Let's get a small booth at the games convention. That sounds reasonable. You can go on vacation as well. Thank you very much. What are the reviews? It's bad. Really, really bad. And I think what's going to end up... Yeah, I'm not even... I'm going to get penalized for this because it's just terrible. So... man. It's going to sell a lot of units because it's through a publisher who's marketing, of course. But hey, there you go. So... Deep Platinum is going to penalize me for that. Sorry, Deep Silver. Yeah, this is pretty bad. Anyway, conclusion. I don't think Dev Tycoon is a very good game at all. I think that it gives very poor feedback to the player, and it makes it very difficult to learn how to be good at it. It relies very much on formula that are hidden beneath the actual surface of the game. Those formula are written out on wikis, and as a result, you get perfect tens pretty much every time. I assume there's some randomization element in there, but you can make games pretty much every time just by looking at spreadsheets. I need this game to tell me, to give me information that I can use to divine what is good and what is not. But the game never does that. The actual gameplay itself is fairly basic. There's not that much complexity to it at all other than manipulating sliders and managing your money. The game doesn't really give you great tools to do any of those either, which is unfortunate to say the least. It's like, I can look at my costs, and I can't even look at my costs. Like, it shows me how much I've got now, but, you know, where are the graphs? Where are the pie charts? Where's the analytics that I can use to analyze just how good a game was? The only thing you really have in that regard is to look at your game history, and then that's what you're given. Average review score, top sales rank, income and loss, and the cost of making the game, and the number of units, and that's it. That's all you're given. And this doesn't help all that much. You might think, oh, right, well, which game did I make that was super successful? God, you have to go back pretty far. Biscuit Adventures, fantasy RPG, on the Game Boy. Super successful. Really successful. Try and make that again, and they'll probably just shut you the hell down for it. The game's just kind of a big, frustrating ball of goop, and as a direct result, I find myself only playing it because I like the theme. Not because I think that it tackles the theme very well. I think it might be an accurate simulation in the sense that your company can make a bunch of good games and go bust regardless. But I just don't think it's a very good game. Here's the thing, though. It's an $8 game that deals with a theme that not a lot of other games do. And I think that's actually going to be enough for a lot of people to get their $8 out of it. I think you play a good few hours of this game, you make some funny name games, you share them with your friends, say, hey, look at what I did, blah, blah, blah. And you role play. And that's actually enough for a lot of people. It's not enough for me, though. I don't think it's enough for me at all. As much as I'd like to say otherwise. Let's try and make it. We could try and make a sequel to TotalBiscuit. I can't even remember. You know, it doesn't even tell you how it was successful. Like, how many design points were in it? How many technology points were in it? What circumstances? Can't analyze any of that. Man. GameLink still has market share. Or we could make it for the PlayStation. Who knows? We'll have one last spin of the dice, shall we? Like a small title. Biscuit engine, there we go. Spin of the dice, really? I guess you could spin a dice. Put it on its edge. More sides it's got, the easier it probably is. TotalBiscuit Grey. Let's give it a shot. And then we'll wrap this up. So, I can't really recommend this game, honestly. But then at the same time, I turn around and think, but it is only $8, and it does tackle a theme that most games don't. Like, is game dev story any better than this? Not really. Like, having played both of them, I like Kairosoft's games, don't get me wrong, but they're extremely casual, and there's not a lot of thought in them. Like, once again, they're carried by the theme. They actually have a game called Dungeon Village, which I enjoyed immensely, but the game actually has nothing to it. It has no depth whatsoever. It's once again just carried by its theme, and Kairosoft games very often are. And this is no exception. I don't think there is a good game about making video games yet. It would be nice if there was, because it's something I'm really interested in. A really cool business manager surrounding that would be great, but I just don't think one exists yet. Alright, focus on the gameplay, focus on the storyline. We'll give it one last shot, we'll see what happens. This came out years ago, they can't punish me too much for developing a sequel now, right? God, I hope not. Level design, dialogues, less on the AI. Yes, you can have a level editor and better AI, why not? Just leave it in there. Funnily enough, like, the features of games cost so little relative to how much it costs you to run your studio on a monthly basis, you might as well just leave them all in there most of the time. Like, open world, $10,000. I mean, really? It costs me, what, $100,000 a month just to keep my thing open? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can afford $10K. So a lot of these choices aren't even choices because the amount that you save is just negligible. This seems fine. I mean, those sliders look good. The Dreamcast has been released. Wonderful. Hype is building. Let's spend some money on marketing. We're gonna go all or nothing on this one. We're gonna do a full-on small marketing campaign. Get that hype going. Look at the design. Look at the technology. This is really high now. Fix those bugs. Can we get to 60? No, I don't think we're gonna get to 60. Oh, nice. We're ready to release. It's got really high design, new records across the board, great hype. There's no way this game shouldn't do well. Let's see. How well does TotalBiscuit Grey do? Multi-genre now available. New reviews are in. It's an 8. Oh well. It's still good. It's good enough for a sequel, right? Why not? I can make it a yearly franchise. A 10 from all games. They're getting the exclusive next time around, I'll tell you that for a fact. That should hopefully save the company. Yes, indeed. Look at those sales. Look at them roll in. Great hype behind this title. I actually made very little on this. Yeah, I'm just kind of breaking even right now. Typical. Alright, folks, there you go. Game Dev Tycoon. Don't think it's a very good game, honestly. Probably worth playing anyway, because the theme carries it. But here's hope. You know, maybe they make a Game Dev Tycoon 2 and it ends up being a lot better than this. I hope so. That would be cool. Now, I think they've probably sold enough copies to be successful now. Maybe they make a new Game Dev Tycoon and it's better. I hope so. That would be cool. I want to play a game like this. This is, for me, this is my personal desperation genre. But I'm not willing to accept subpar gameplay and terrible feedback to the player, just simply on the basis that it happens to be about making video games. You can check it out on their website, folks. It's available from there. It's also available in the Windows Store. It's not on Steam or Desuro, I think anywhere right now. It's actually, you can just really buy it direct. $8 or your regional equivalent. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.